First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us on the call today and taking a little bit of your lunchtime to go over a few of these things and coming up with some of the different things in our current environment on how we respond and how we do different things. And either fortunately or unfortunately for me, I don't know how you want to look at it, my fiance is a registered nurse. And I was putting on my gloves and doing certain tasks and going to the store, and she would absolutely come unglued to me as far as, you're not doing it right. Look at what you're doing. Think about what you're doing. It's not right. It took her 5 or 6 times trying to show me how to take on a pair of gloves and take it off. I tried to even Google search taking on gloves and taking off gloves. And I wasn't even Google searching it right. If you find some of the websites from Adventist Health or some of the medical institutes on how to properly do it, they refer to it as donning and doffing your gloves. I don't know why they just can't say taking them on and taking them off, but when you start to use the correct terminology, you start to be able to watch different videos and do different things. And it got me thinking about different situations that I've been in. And one of the kind of unique things that I have is a certification in MAS and MRS, which is mold awareness specialist and mold remediation specialist. And when I was going for the hands-on classroom training, what they did is they took a room that was a clean room and taking out drywall and studs and getting to the mold or mildew that was in the studs. What they did is they simulated it by taking a black light, putting and showing you that there's no mold in there. And then they sprinkled baby powder all inside of the wall and then lit it back up so that you could see how it would show up. And then we would put on our PPE and our equipment, and after a bit you scrub and you go through and use the HEPA vacuums and filters and doing everything. And what they would do is light it up after you were done to see how well you did the job. And what we were finding, even using the PPE and the proper equipment, we would find bits of the baby powder on our face, on our arms, so you have to become very, very conscious in what you're doing, how you use the tools, how you're even taking on and taking off gloves. And I was trying to think, how can I make a video, if you will. And I found one video that was kind of related, if you get a chance to go back and watch. Anyway, it's a 5-minute video, and they did a simulation, and they took 6 people to simulate a dinner party. And 3 of the people that were participants in this were told that the host had a cold and was going to be, it was a simulated cold, not really trying to spread his germs, but just to be aware not to come in contact with him or get the germs on them. And 3 of the participants didn't know anything other than they were just going in to have a dinner party. And when they did the simulation, they put some kind of rig on his nose to simulate a dripping nose and him constantly wiping and doing everything. And he would come in, shake hands with some of the participants, the ones that knew, try to not expose themselves to him whatsoever. And after, this picture in the bottom right-hand corner is showing you that what it looked like before, and the one above it was after. And everything that he touched spread the germs from his cold. And some of the participants had it on their face, all over their hands, and just how we're being that close. And even the people that were conscious, 2 of those people failed. There was only one person that, when she explains that she's already OCD about germs, and it wasn't very hard for her to abstain from touching or doing different things that she was doing when she was past something. She grabbed it with a napkin, wiped it off, but just the extent that she had to go through. So when we start to think about an apartment home, and we start to look at everything that people have touched and they're going in there, and we have to go into work in this kind of environment. We are now all kind of taking precautions on how we deal with this. Simple things like we wear gloves, a mask. Does it really protect you? There's a couple of videos you can watch, and this nurse has simulated. What she's done is picked up and used oil or grease or grime and put it on certain items that you pick up with your gloves. And as she goes through her shopping event, she's wearing her gloves, and her husband calls, she picks up the phone, then transfers the contamination to the phone. It gets on her hands, her nose itches. And when she's done with her shopping, she takes off the gloves and properly disposes of them. And then you can see where the grease, grime, and oil that she used to kind of simulate, even though we're using protective equipment, the cross-contamination is still happening. So it really got me thinking, you know, it could be something as simple as your meter, your tools that you use, and keeping yourself, try to, you know, when you go into an apartment home, if we go in with the mentality that everybody has the virus, I think if we go in with that mentality, we start taking a lot better precautions of our protective equipment, a lot better precautions on how we put this on, what we're actually using our tools on. We have a meter. We do the same thing. We touch things in the apartment home. We touch our meter. We come out. We take off our gloves, but yet the meter has not been disinfected. The tools that we've used has not been disinfected. Cross-contamination then starts to happen and starts to go through. So just going through and properly taking on and taking off, or donning and doffing a pair of gloves may seem like a simple little task, but if you watch some of these little short videos on how to do this, you can absolutely see how cross-contamination can happen. Need to call the office, you're on the phone, or call a vendor to look up a part, you've touched your phone. Put on a new pair of gloves before touching anything. And even before you put on gloves, you should wash your hands thoroughly and sanitize your gloves. I mean, a quick 45-second video on how to wash your hands. Are you donning and doffing your PPE, and are you doing it right? Again, I thought I was doing it right until I was corrected so many times, and then watching the videos and seeing how the cross-contamination can happen. And this is a video too. This is from Adventist Health, one of the videos that you can watch on how to doffing and put on and take off your gloves.
Sam is entering her patient's room to perform a skin assessment. As part of standard precautions, Sam puts on gloves. Oops. Let's try that again, Sam. Sam performs hand hygiene and then puts on her gloves. Sam knows the outside of her gloves are contaminated. Using her gloved hand, she grasps the palm area of her other gloved hand and peels off the first glove, holding the removed glove in the gloved hand. She slides her fingers of her ungloved hand under the remaining glove at her wrist and peels off the second glove over the first glove. She discards the gloves in a waste container. Sam performs hand hygiene. That's more like it, Sam.
You know, just thinking about some of those ways, and we think about how we're doing or washing our hands, and are we doing it for 20 seconds? I'm not sure if there's a video on here where a person takes, yeah, here it is, and they put grease in their hand, and you start to realize how much it really takes. So if you just put soap in your hands and wash your hands, just washing the palms of them, and then absolutely trying to spread and take off and cover the entire area with the soap. So you can see it's a little bit of a chore to wash your hands. You know, I don't know that I ever washed my hands this well before, but I do now. And again, it's just simple practices and techniques that we can do if you want to even practice doing this. Donning and doffing an N95 mask and doing it right so it can be reused. We've all been now in the situation where masks were very hard to come by, even at the hospitals. My fiance would have to reuse the same mask continuously, but if you don't don or doff them correctly, they really can't be used and they don't offer any protection. A simple little method, you can use a Tupperware container. This one's going to show us a little 1-minute video on how to put it on correctly when you first do it. So that you're not touching the outside of the mask with your hand. And believe it or not, in the hospitals, they were making sure that all the nurses had to save and reuse their PPE, which is kind of sad to say, but because there was none to be had to give them one for every use. So when we get into situations where we don't have it, trying to reuse what we already have. Keeping your tools healthy. How are we going to do this with our tools, if you will, and how are we going to carry them? You know, store them in a primary box, whether it's a nylon coated box or a actual hard box. You can use one of two things. So if you keep your tools in this box, all the tools that are in this box are sanitized. Once I go into the apartment home and I perform whatever I need to do, all the tools that are taken from my sanitized box at that point, after I use them, I'll put them in a sealed zip bag. And these bags are pretty cheap. You can find them at most of the stores that you shop at. And the inside are vinyl lined against moisture, and you put all the tools inside of there. Once you've completed the chore or task, you come out with your PPE still intact, change, wash your hands, and then go in, put another pair of gloves on, and start to sanitize and wipe down all of your tools from the contamination bag. If we operate under the assumption that every apartment has the virus, I think we'll do a lot better job. If you just assume everybody's got it, look at everybody as if they have the virus, and hope that they don't. But if we do that, I think we'll even start to look at how we've even done little small tasks over the years. As far as, you know, when I did preventative maintenance, changing an AC filter, I would just go in with boxes of filters, take the old one out, throw it in a plastic bag and put it in there. But if we start to realize if somebody coughs, somebody sneezes, where do the droplets go? You know, they go within the apartment home, they're touching the surfaces. But if the air conditioning system is running, they go onto the return air filter. You know, I would tell you it'd be very imperative. This is probably one of the most routine tasks that we should be wearing even before all of this was happening, to wear gloves and a mask just to change filters. And especially if we're on a preventative maintenance program with so many we have to do at one time. Once a job is completed, the tools need to be sanitized before returning. If you have something as simple as soap and water, sanitize, use a germicidal cleaner, wipes, spray, allow to air dry, and you may have to relubricate some of your tools. Your meters, you're going to have to just use sanitized cloths to wipe them down. You don't want to immerse them in water. Some tools can be immersed in a soapy water or germicidal or even a light bleach solution. But there are many different ways to do it. Just remember that some of your tools, after they've dried, may need to be relubricated so that they don't take on the rust and they last you a little bit longer. Coronavirus has motivated us to do better tool hygiene now and after the crisis. Right now we're in a state of how do we get the training? How do we do the different things that we haven't been able to do before? We're doing some blended format training. We have EPA certifications going on every week until we get through this and they release the stay in place order in the groups. As soon as we get back on, we'll be back out in the field doing the certification classes in a one-on-one, in a more hands-on type classes. But I hope some of these little tips and tricks were able to bring some light on some different things. Has anybody got any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, different things they may be doing that maybe I didn't touch on, that you're going above and beyond? I know that the secondary bag, I wish I could take 100% credit, but there's a management company that kind of put that in my head that they were already doing that. So anyway, I know I've eaten up more than my 15 minutes. Now I understand why they wouldn't let me play all the videos. But what I would really, shoe protectors, absolutely. You know, you go into some place, if it's on the floor, you're going to pick it up on your shoes. That's a great suggestion that I did not cover, that somebody who was at K Green, good suggestion, I appreciate it. But I don't think there's too much protection in this kind of environment. Hopefully today was helpful, and it gives you a new way to look at different things, and especially by watching some of those videos. And like I said, just taking on and putting off a pair of gloves, I didn't think it was such a situation, but I was definitely enlightened by watching some of the healthcare professionals and the proper way to do it, and how I was just recontaminating my hand when I took it off and not absolutely putting them on the right way. So I hope people can take, if you took one or two little pieces away from this, it was beneficial and helpful. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining me and being a part of this, and embracing this new environment. And great group, guys, and I appreciate y'all attending. Thanks, and I hope you're having a great day.